It's time now to review what's making headlines across the world this morning, and we're going to bring in a RISE analyst, Dr. Constance Ikoku.
Good morning, Adesu. How are you today?
Good morning. I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
I am excellent. And Charles and Yolanda, how is it going?
Good morning. Well, thank you.
Good morning, Constance. You indeed are excellent. Prove it.
Thank you. Okay, to look at the papers with us this morning, we have Chuks Akunna. He is the Executive Director of Authority newspaper. Hello there and welcome to the program. We'll begin with this day.
Thank you very much for having me.
Opposition's victory in Ghana signals end of APC's oppressive rule in 2027, says PDP. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, really wishes for the APC to be gone by 2027 election, citing Ghana as an example of how people's power can prevent a failing government from coming back. The party's publicity secretary, Debo Ologunagba, recounted what has been seen as APC's failures, which includes insecurity, plunging the naira from 197 naira during the PDP to about $2,000 now. And then, of course, high inflation and crippling productive sector, etc. The reality is that, Chuks, it would take more than press releases and screaming matches to get the APC out of power. This is serious stuff. The power is entrenched, and it would definitely take more than this.
Exactly. Unlike Ghana, unlike Nigeria, we didn't see the opposition in Ghana, defecting on a daily basis as it is here. The case here is in Nigeria. It's like you rightly said, it will take more than press releases, periodic press releases at that, to actually get the APC out of power. Only a few days ago, we saw several, about 5 or 6 members of the House of Reps from the opposition parties, defect to APC. We didn't see that happen in Ghana. We heard what the INEC chairman said, that unlike Nigeria, that you rarely see politicians defecting from their parties, during elections or after elections in Ghana. But you see, here you have to also ask yourself, what is PDP bringing to the table? A party that has been unable to put its house in order. What will it be telling Nigerians? As we speak, the party is not even sure of where to zone its presidential ticket in the next elections. It's been a matter of back and forth, among the top politicians in PDP. So it's wishful thinking to all intents and purposes, if you ask me.
Charles, Debo Ologunagba is right when he talks about people's power. But the people have to understand the power that they have and use it. Let's look at South Korea, for instance, when the president declared martial law.
Yeah.
The people marched to the National Assembly and they stayed there till morning until the president buckled. If you do not use your power, nothing is going to change.
Well, absolutely. What happened in South Korea is exemplary. And of course, the Ghanaian election should be a model for Africa. But bringing it closer to home, I think that people have become rather skeptical or cynical given the spate of electoral malpractices, that take place in our own case. The people actually vote, but then the other people, the power brokers, have their say. And that's why we're always having cases of electoral manipulations. I covered the election in Edo State recently, and I saw instances of vote buying clearly. And of course, I was asking myself the question, do the people understand the power of that vote they have in their hands? So I guess voter education would actually be very, very important at this point in our political existence.
Well, let's look at Daily Independent. Well, in addition to voter education, there is also the fact that people are impoverished and a lot are fighting for survival. Daily Independent, 2027, it's injustice to preclude North from running, Atiku says. He also says the South would have done 17 years and the North 11, according to his calculation, but it's not particularly, it's not correct. Well, the thing to say here is that, is this even up for discussion, given that former Vice President Atiku Abubakar is seen as many by many as one of the people that has contributed to the problems in the People's Democratic Party, which is the main opposition party. He has been running for president perpetually, and a couple of other people. They have really weakened the party, Chooks.
Should be said, Atiku started running for presidency in 1993, you know, with alongside people like Tinubu too. But the truth is, people are asking questions, you know, must it all be about Atiku? Like I said earlier, you know, PDP has yet to actually put its acts together. It's talking about, Atiku is already talking about the next elections, you know, about zoning. You know, I have thought that Atiku should have been more circumspect in that. Would have allowed people like other persons in the party to actually say that. The fact that Atiku is talking, you know, highlights the growing concerns of many that it must be about Atiku. Many blame Atiku for being responsible, for singularly being responsible for PDP's loss in the last general elections, because as many have thought at the time, you know, the ticket should have been zoned to the south. And we saw the damage that Atiku's candidates did to PDP. That led to people like Peter Obi leaving PDP, you know, and forming the splinter Labour Party, and also people like Nyesom Wike, you know, who felt betrayed, if you ask me, by the outcome of that presidential primary, you know, forming the G5 governors group that actually led to the dismemberment of PDP in the last general elections. So, you know, it's about 3 years to the next general elections, close to 3 years, and we're talking about who gets what in PDP. But I think PDP will be playing to the hands of people like Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because as things stand, Bola Ahmed Tinubu is said to be the flag bearer of the APC in the next general elections. But while APC seems to have settled its case, you know, PDP is still bickering over who should, you know, fly the party's ticket in the next general elections, which is not good, which wouldn't be good for the party, if you ask me.
Exactly, and for the record, the North has been in power for 48 years of Nigeria's 64 years. This is counting from 1960, and of course the military rule as well, while the South has been in power for 16 years. However, I think a lot of people are more interested in the quality of governance rather than the numbers that we are counting. Tax reform, let's look at Daily Trust. Tax reform, Southeast Senate Caucus seeks wider consultations. The head of the caucus in the Senate, Senator Enyinaya Abaribe, said the zone is not against the bill, but more deliberations will help ease tension. We do know that last week, 16 senators from the South-South zone expressed readiness to work with the North in order to discuss, you know, the matter and see what's going on that bill. That's why let's come to you. I mean, there's need to study, evaluate, and, you know, continue negotiations on this bill, isn't it?
There is, but you know, one thing about these tax bills is that we have 4 tax bills in front of us, and people are only focusing on VAT, and they're only focusing on what they are going to receive from VAT or from the new calculations. This is actually comprehensive tax reforms. A lot of these reforms were proposed by the IMF, at least, you know, between maybe 10 years ago, a decade ago. These reforms are not necessarily new to the Nigerian, you know, sentiments. However, when it comes to the Southeast region contributed 84.94 billion naira to the VAT pool in the past year, but they received 288.89 billion. So that's more than double what they contributed that they received back in this VAT pool. And so when we're talking about equity and fairness, or trying to make something more equity, particularly when it comes to sharing these things or FAC allocation, then we understand sometimes that the politicians or the political leaders, their motivations are different from that of the people themselves. And another thing is, I just wanted to say, because we were talking about politics and this regional, you know, issue earlier, I think it's incorrect to say that Peter Obi left PDP because of Atiku Abubakar. He did leave before, you know, a candidate was chosen, and he said that himself. And the reason I want to, you know, bring this up is because ultimately the only thing that can defeat the APC is a united opposition. And so when we're talking about the failings of the PDP, if we focus on Atiku's candidacy, if we focus on rotation,
right,
if we ignore Wike, we need to be very careful about what we're saying ahead of the 2027 elections.
Okay, but this way, I do agree that Vice President or former Vice President Atiku's candidacy is perpetually also contributed to the crisis that they have in that party.
I don't
Chooks,
agree.
do you have anything to add here?
I don't agree. I don't agree.
Okay,
Yes.
let's look at Vanguard newspaper. 2025 budget. Senate threatens zero allocation to MDAs over non-appearance. Ministries, departments, and agencies who fail to appear before the Senate for the budgets will be scrutinized, or for their budgets to be scrutinized, will not have any allocation. The Senate is warning. The question here is, what difference does it make, the appearance all these years? Has it stopped any money from disappearing? Has it stopped MDAs from stuffing their budget, Charles?
Maybe it's supposed to preclude, okay, let me just put it this way. Maybe it is just their contribution to the fight against corruption, I think, because you have to be there to defend your budget, meaning that this is what is going to be allocated to you. Okay, this is what you're proposing. This is what will be allocated to you. And then at the end of the day, you have to defend it. So if you're not there to defend it, it means that we can just throw anything at you or nothing at you at all. But then I think it's in a bid to avoid corruption so that there'll be more accountability. Appearing before the Senate to defend your budget is an act of accountability.
The Senate also spoke about discrepancies in revenue generation and the tracking of expenditure. So this brings up the issue of fiscal accountability and financial management, in the system in total, Chooks.
Yes, it's called the Appropriation Bill, and when it's passed into law, it becomes the Appropriation Act. It's an act of parliament. It's a joke that MDAs will want to fail, or ministries will want to fail to appear before lawmakers. The law says you cannot spend a dime. Not even the president can spend a dime without appropriation. So it beggars belief that they will invite. Naturally, they shouldn't even invite the MDAs and the ministries ought to know that you cannot spend a dime of taxpayers' money unless members of the National Assembly approve that. But it also calls to question the role of our lawmakers. When our lawmakers have gone hand in glove with most of these agencies, so they no longer respect them as they should. Imagine countries like the US, where you're supposed to appear before the parliament. It's a very serious business. But here, people are summoned to appear before National Assembly. They don't come, and most times nothing happens. And it's a very, very bad, sad commentary for Nigeria as a country.
There are papers here today. The Guardian, let's look at that. 1.1 million people displaced as 77% of IDPs seek to return home, says NBS. That's a serious issue from the terrorism challenges we've been having over the years. People are totally displaced in their country. Daily Sun, Ghana, PDP can SSCF scribe take INEC to task. Tax reform bill, Southeast senators seek wider consultations. We've seen that. Punch, no vacancy comments. ACF, Atiku others lampoon presidency over 2027 poll. 3,270 Nigerians gained American citizenship via military service. That's according to the United States. I mean, a lot of people are gaining citizenship and then they are sent to the war front and they die in the sake of seeking greener pastures. Tax reform, National Assembly caucus meetings delay talks with AGF. Defamation, Farotimi gets 50 million bail to submit passports. A lot of people are happy at least that he has gotten bail. Then to international headlines, look at Daily Graphic. In Daily Graphic this morning, our best days are ahead. Mahama inspires hope in victory speech. The president-elect John Mahama has promised good governance and to rule with humility and integrity. He said his victory is testament to the fact that Ghanaians want accountable leadership. Yolanda, good talk right there. Humility and integrity are two virtues that are often missing in the political space. But Mahama will, people will be expecting him to live up to his expectation, or to his talk.
Good talk indeed. Well, John Mahama seems really to be bringing the fire, well, with his words at least. And I guess the days ahead will show what, the years ahead will show if he can back up that speech and if he'll be able to bring and take from the experience that he had before and lead a better Ghana. Hopefully that is what we can all hope for, because these promises galore have been on our mouths from the past few days, with headlines constantly, reassuring his citizens that things are going to change. Well, let's see how that goes as well with the IMF talk as well. I think Adesua, you spoke a bit about this as well, about the promises that were made to make changes in the IMF budgeting of Ghana.
Well, Ghana has been facing economic crisis, high cost of living, inflation, and all of that. So that's one of the reasons why they voted the party out. Like you said, we'll see what goes on in the next couple of months. We'll be watching. Citizen newspaper, is Lesufi's time up? The African National Congress, ANC big guns, are taking aim at Gauteng Premier Panyaza Lesufi, who is opposed to the government of national unity. And there's an imminent decision to fire him following the party's poor showing in the recent polls. The national leadership was dissatisfied with the electoral outcomes, and Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, which received 34.7% in May election, down from 50.19%. Again to you, Yolanda, the South African government of national unity hasn't been easy. It hasn't been an easy one, but the ANC has no choice than to have that government of national unity. The broader discussion now here is that when you look at a couple of Southern African countries, whether it's Botswana, whether it's Mozambique, whether it's Namibia, those parties that have been in power for a long time that led them to independence struggle, they're facing opposition in their countries right now.
Well, yes. I mean, in the case of Panyazi Lesufi, I mean, he is the premier of Gauteng province. And this is a big deal at this point to ask such questions and say, is his time really up? At this point, besides the political scrutiny over corruption allegations, we mustn't forget his comments recently about, the water crisis that has been going on. I think he said something about a bleak Christmas ahead. And this is really not the type of economy to be having critical water crises and, to be talking about issues such as illegal water connections. Maybe it's about time that this question is taken up considerably.
Well, Charles, let's come to Adesua. Rather, the government of national unity has been a bit shaky. How do you see it working out in the coming years?
I think the government of national unity was always going to be shaky when you're bringing the DA and the ANC together, people who have very opposing philosophies that, form their party. And so it's a combination of very strange bedfellows, I would say. And so we're always going to see these different things. And also particularly because you have MK Nkonto Sizwe coming up, being more powerful than even the EFF, the ANC is under threat. And so I think I don't think anyone expected that it would be smooth sailing. And South Africa is also seeing, it seems like there's been some negligence, when it comes to the power sector, when it comes to the water crisis, when it comes to the economy, and particularly the jobs market. Just yesterday reported on South Africa being a drug transit, location. Right. And so these issues, these very serious issues, which the ANC has not been able to tackle, are the issues that might pull the ANC down.
Well, let's see how that goes. Daily Mirror, the rat of Damascus. Yes, what a headline. This is a jolting headline, but not surprising. British newspapers, they can be brutal in the way they cast their headlines and even the way they write their stories. Their own English language. I mean, this is referring to the fall of Bashar al-Assad of Syria. Even the British Prime Minister or Foreign Minister, rather, David Lammy, said Assad's defeat has handed a humble pie to Russia and Iran. In a way, that's correct. At the same time, when you look at the crisis over the years, it's like a power struggle between the West and the East, because the West was also sponsoring rebel groups against the government, Chooks.
You know, Assad, people used to call Assad the Lion of Damascus. That's why British Foreign Secretary called him the Rat of Damascus. The truth is that, you know, all over the world, when you see like what's playing out in Ukraine, you see that global powers take sides, you know, NATO versus Russia. So, but Assad's fall is a very huge blow to not only to Russia, but also to Iran and Hezbollah, you know, by extension Hezbollah. But you see, time and again, we've seen how how the West had backed several rebel groups to actually take power in some countries, only to turn out to become Frankenstein monsters themselves. You know, look at if you look at a case in point is Libya. You know, the West helped topple Muammar Gaddafi several years ago, over 10 years ago. But look at how Libya has yet to actually, you know, pick its to pick its bits and pieces together. Several other countries, I can name a handful of countries that have been, you know, become a pawn in chessboard, political chessboard of foreign powers. And when regimes are toppled, you know, particularly by the West, you know, it leaves the country with the short end of the stick.
Right.
A lot of people are worried about what's going to happen to, what's going to become the future of Syria, you know, given what has happened in several other countries like Libya.
Okay, it's very uncertain. We'll see. Metro.co.uk stabbed to death for a teddy bear. A schoolgirl, Ellen Andam, was knifed to death by her friend's ex in a row over returning a teddy bear. I mean, it's very tragic. This is again raises the issue of knifing in the United Kingdom. It's very rampant, has been a crisis for a very long time. This poor girl was only 15, Yolanda. Very tragic.
It's extremely tragic. You know, just as you rightly said, the youth violence in the UK is staggering. And, you know, I think many people can you know, relate to hearing these kind of horrid stories from their loved ones who are afraid for their children, who go to school, who wonder if they will reach there safely, if they will get home safely. And you also can't help but ask, are there also some mental health issues going on in the background? What is not being addressed? What is really going on at the crux of it?
Yes. Well, they do not have guns, they use knives instead.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's what's on my mind then.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. It seems like systemic failure. I can't forget the day that this happened because it was all over social media.
Right.
And to think that such a young girl's life was taken in broad daylight. In broad daylight is
over teddy bear.
Is absolutely
something insignificant.
Absolutely tragic.
Yeah. Well, that's all we have for the paper review this morning. Thank you so much, Chuks Akuna, for joining us.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Constance, for that brilliant newspaper review. That's all we have for you today on Daybreak. It's goodbye from me. I'm Adesua Giwa Osage.
Please do keep it here on Arise News. I'm Charles Eruka.
And I'm Yolanda Roberts. The morning show is next. Goodbye.